You can be profitable on paper, busy all day, admired by clients, and still be quietly bleeding out through costs you never bothered to trace. That's the lone wolf tax. It's not a visible cost, it's the unseen one. It's definitely not the invoice that you paid, it's the suit you never bought because you were too busy replacing the window to let somebody else break. If you're what we call the capable and constrained operator, this is where you get trapped. You feel the pressure, so you react. You see the immediate fire, so you run towards it. You land the client, patch the funnel, answer the inbox, discount the offer, add the tools, hire the contractor, rebuild the page, post the content, and tell yourself all that movement actually means progress. But all that movement is just expensive repair work on damage you created, or that you tolerated, or that you never had the structure to prevent. And because you're alone, because you're overloaded, because nobody is forcing you to trace the second, third, fourth, and fifth consequences of all those decisions, you keep staring at the visible win while ignoring the invisible cost. That's why Henry Hazlitt's book still matters. Not because he wrote an economic classic in 1946, or not because he gives you a chapter-by-chapter history lesson. Hazlitt matters because he hands you a brutal lens through which you can see the truth about your situation. He teaches you to stop worshiping what strikes the eye and ask a simple, hard question. What else did this decision do, and who else will pay for it later? This is not abstract. This is your offer, your calendar, your pricing, your systems, your team decisions, and your content rhythm. It's your operational sanity. Hazlitt reduces economics to a single sentence. Trace the consequences of a policy for all groups, not just one, and not just now, but in the future as well. That may sound like public policy, but it's also the operating system of a serious business. Because if you don't track consequences, you become a manager of shattered glass. You become the window replacer in your own chaos economy. Here's the challenge. You keep calling repairs revenue. You keep calling busyness value. And you keep calling reaction leadership. So here's where we're going. We're not covering everything in Hazlitt's book. He'd hate that anyways. Probably so would I. Probably so would you. We're going to go after the highest leverage principles for the capable operator who is already producing income, but who is understructured, reactive, and paying that hidden lone wolf tax every single week. We'll walk through 4 principles. First, shattered glass is not growth. Second, full calendars are not the same thing as full production. Third, every rescue hides a diversion. And fourth, your pricing system is already talking and you keep overriding it. Then we're going to close the ledger and show you why awareness alone will not save you. Hazlitt's really useful because he's not a performing genius. He's a disciplined expositor. He's not trying to impress you with complexity. He's trying to strip away the half-truths that let people defend the nonsense with confidence. He says economic fallacies survive for 2 reasons. 1, special interests plead their case with relentless intensity. Number 2, people see the immediate effect on one group and neglect the longer-term effect on other groups. That's not just the pathology of governments. It's the pathology of founders, too. You do it every time you make a decision based on relief instead of reality. You do it when you say yes to work that pays now, but scrambles delivery later. You do it when you cut your price to close a deal and ignore what that decision does to positioning, margin, resentment, and future expectations, both of yourself and for that client for whom you cut the costs. You do it when you add a tool because the demo is really shiny, but you never calculate the training cost, the complexity cost, the maintenance cost. So this, under Hazlitt's scheme, this is your first mirror. You're probably not drowning because you lack effort. You're drowning because you keep making one group decisions in a one-person business. You're acting for the immediate self, the scared self, the tired self, the self that wants the visible result by Friday because they're tired of not getting that thing done. Meanwhile, the future self, the delivery self, the system self, the margin self, and the exhausting self gets the bill. That's not leadership. That's internal subsidy. And if that line stings, good, it really should. Because until you see this, you'll keep calling your own distortions necessary. They're not. So principle number 1, shattered glass is not growth. Hazlitt's most famous frame is the broken window. A hoodlum throws a brick through a baker's window, and a crowd gathers. Someone says there's a bright side. The glazier, the window replacer, he gets the business. Money circulates, jobs are created, everybody nods, because they see the new window, and that will exist tomorrow. What they don't see is the suit the baker was planning to buy and now can't. They see the glazier, but they don't see the tailor. They see the repair. They don't see the alternative good that never comes into being. That's a perfect business diagnosis for you. You lose a week because your CRM is a mess. You finally cleaned it up. You feel productive. You praise the cleanup. You pat yourself on the back. But you never count the campaign cost that wasn't ever built, the follow-up that didn't happen, the thinking time that got cannibalized, or the creative energy that you spent replacing the window. You take on a misaligned client, then burn hours managing confusion, rescoping deliverables, answering panicked questions, rewriting expectations, and emotionally recovering from all of that. You call it client fulfillment. Hazlitt would call it shattered glass. You undercharge, more buyers come in, you celebrate demand, but the margin vanishes. The work expands, the calendar clogs up, the resentment rises both inside yourself and in anyone that you're working with, and the higher value work you could have built never gets made. Again, you see the glazier, you don't see the tailor. So this is where clarity enters the room in Hazlitt's language. Clarity is tracing the unseen cost, not admiring the visible activity or confusing circulation with creation. Cash movement does not equal value creation. You need the discipline to ask every single time, what is it replacing? What future suit am I sacrificing for this repaired window? And don't answer that question based on theory. Answer it with the ledger. What offer was delayed because you said yes to this client? What system was never installed because you kept managing expectations? What sleep, what margin, what trust or reputation got consumed by the thing you're currently praising as momentum? Until you ask those hard questions, you're really vulnerable to every half-truth that flatters your exhaustion. Here's the right fit client translation in simple language. Your business doesn't only break when revenue drops. It breaks when you become too accustomed to living inside preventable repair cycles. It breaks when your week fills with the glazier work, patching, apologizing, untangling, redoing, chasing, rescuing, clarifying what should have been clear in the first place, and manually carrying all the stuff that structure should have dealt with. That kind of week feels intense. It can even feel noble. Most often it's just really expensive on a lot of levels. And because the result is visible, because the customer got the email, the page got fixed, the call got handled, the fire got put out, you congratulate yourself for responsibility while the invisible losses pile up behind the wall. This old pattern ends when you stop rewarding repair work with emotional applause. From now on, every major decision gets an unseen cost audit before you call it smart. If you discount, you trace the margin of consequence. If you add a tool, trace the complexity consequence. If you say yes to a client, you trace the delivery consequence. If you keep a broken process, you trace the downstream labor consequence. So this is your new standard. No visible win is accepted at face value until you identify what it displaced, what it delayed, what it weakened, or what it made impossible somewhere else in your business. That's your first iron door. Shattered glass is not growth. Repair is not automatically value. Movement is not automatically production. Principle number 2, full calendars are not full production. This is a mistake that so many of us make. Hazlitt attacks another superstition with that same really sharp knife. He says, production is the end. Employment is merely the means. That was his rebuke to a fetish of full employment and the fear of machinery. People panic when machines remove labor from one visible place. They imagine jobs disappearing as if the whole story ended right there. We're seeing this today play out right before our eyes with AI. The fear headlines scream about all the job losses artificial intelligence will cause. Hazlitt says no, a very hard no. The real aim is not to maximize human effort, human toil. The real aim is to maximize production, welfare, and output. That matters for you because you've been trained, often spiritually and culturally, to trust effort more than leverage. To feel righteous when your calendar is full, to assume that you're exhausted. If you're exhausted, you must be doing something really, really important. To treat automation with suspicion, delegation with guilt, simplification with fear, and white space with moral anxiety. You say you want freedom, but emotionally you still trust visible labor more than clean production. You know this is true when you resist building the system because the manual version feels more real. You know it's true when you keep touching the same task every single week because it reassures you that you're still involved. You know it's true when you postpone writing SOPs, creating dashboards or paying attention to dashboards, templates, automations, boundaries, because somewhere inside you, you still believe that a full calendar proves your worth. Hazlitt would tell you that's primitive economics. In business terms, it's primitive operations. A founder who worships full employment inside a tiny company will do really absurd things. They'll keep 3 manual systems that software could have better handled for them. They will answer questions the onboarding sequence should have done instead. They'll personally approve every tiny decision that a documented standard could govern, but doesn't, because they didn't take the time to create it. They'll hire before simplifying, and they'll overcomplicate service delivery so they can keep feeling indispensable. Then they complain that growth creates overwhelm. No, it really doesn't. Disorder creates overwhelm. Activity worship creates overwhelm. Confusion and confusing means and ends, that creates overwhelm. Lack of clarity creates overwhelm. So this is the point where structure enters the room. In Hazlitt's frame, the question is not, how do I keep every part of my week full? Hazlitt says the question is, what creates the greatest result with the least wasted effort? That question exposes a lot. If your onboarding still depends on your memory, you don't have structure. If your content process starts from scratch each week, you don't have structure. If you rebuild offers, pages, delivery assets every time instead of building repeatable, reusable containers, you don't have structure. If your team or your contractors need you to interpret every edge case manually, you don't have structure. You just have visible labor. And here's the brutal part. A lot of lone wolves secretly prefer that way. Guilty as charged for way too long. Because a structured system can measure you. A clean workflow can reveal you are the real bottleneck. If the process is clear and repeatable, then your drift has nowhere to hide. You preserve complexity, then complain about the burden of carrying it. That's kind of insane. So the old standard was stay busy enough to feel justified. The new standard, this is really important, the new standard is this: remove labor that does not increase production, trust, margin, or repeatability. From now on, you audit recurring work by one ruthless question. Does this step create output, or does it merely preserve the feeling of control? If a task repeats, document it. My goodness, document it. If a question repeats, systematize the answer. If a manual handoff repeats, build a process container. If your week is full but your production is unstable, simplify before you push harder. That's common sense, one would hope. You're not building a holy calendar. You're building a machine that can produce without consuming your nervous system. And yes, that's going to feel strange at first, because as founders, we love visible effort. But Scripture does not tell you to be busy. It tells you to be diligent. This is beautiful. Be diligent to show the state of your flocks and attend your herds. Proverbs 27:23. That's not a call to frantic motion. That's a call to sober oversight, signal awareness, and structured stewardship. Diligence is not noise. Diligence is honest attention to what actually sustains the house. Principle number 3, every rescue hides a diversion. Hazlitt keeps returning to the same hard law. Every dollar spent somewhere is a dollar that can't be spent somewhere else. Public work means taxes. Easy credit diverts production. Saving one special interest means burdening all the others. You can call it aid, you can call it stimulus, protection, rescue, or investment, but the naming does not erase the diversion. Resources are finite. Capital, labor, time, and attention go somewhere instead of going somewhere else. This is the lethal truth for operators like you and me, because rescue is one of our favorite fantasies. You think one more tool will rescue the funnel. One more contractor will rescue delivery. One more discount will rescue cash flow. One more platform migration will rescue efficiency. One more late night sprint will rescue the launch. Maybe. In the same sense, a subsidy rescues one industry. But the real question is not whether one line item gets relief. The real question is what got starved to provide that relief. That new software may save 10 minutes a day. It may also cost 6 weeks of setup, team confusion, broken integrations, subscription sprawl, and another layer of complexity you now have to maintain. That cheap front-end offer may bring in buyers, but it also trains your market to expect a lower price. It attracts lower commitment customers. It increases your support burden and delays the real work of clarifying your core offer, which is your most important job. That emergency hire may relieve pressure. It may also hide the fact that your delivery system is unclear, your documentation is weak or non-existent, and your founder brain is still the API for the entire company. This is why so many operators stay trapped in reactive spending. They judge the rescue by the immediate beneficiary. Hazlitt keeps saying, trace the burden on everyone else. In your business, everyone else may just be you, just different departments of you. There's the marketing you, the finance you, the delivery you, the rested you, the strategic you, the future you. Lone wolves are especially vulnerable here because there's no counterweight. Nobody is sitting across the table saying, fine, this rescues this week. What exactly does it tax next month? Nobody is across the table asking that question. So this is where accountability enters the room in Hazlitt's language. Accountability is not a pep talk. It's consequence tracing with witnesses. It's making sure you can't hide the full bill behind the relief of the first effect. That means your decisions need review loops, not vague intentions, not private rationalizations, and definitely not more, well, I think this is going to help. Hazlitt is allergic to that kind of fog. He wants the full chain of consequences. You need the same discipline. The old pattern was rescue first, accounting later. That pattern ends today. From now on, every rescue decision gets a diversion memo of 4 lines minimum. Number 1, immediate relief. Number 2, hidden cost. Number 3, delayed effect. And number 4, who pays? If you can't fill those 4 lines honestly, you're not making a strategic move. You're funding a special interest inside your own company. And when you're under pressure, which is exactly when your judgment gets sentimental, you don't evaluate these decisions alone. This is the point of the Wolfpack protocol. External pressure interrupts self-deception. External eyes trace consequences farther than a tired founder ever will. So no more subsidizing disorder in private and calling it leadership in public. So wait, stop. Don't miss this. Most operators get this far and still dodge the real wound because you can say, fine, I get it. Trace the hidden cost, build a better system, stop the worshipping busyness. I understand, got it. Thanks very much, now go away. But then another problem appears. How do you know what to build, what to cut, what to charge, and what to stop carrying? Hazlitt's answer is savage in its simplicity. Listen to the price system. Listen to the profit. Listen to the signal you keep trying to mute because it offends your preferences. Principle number 4. Your price system is already talking. One of Hazlitt's strongest arguments is that profits are not merely greed trophies. They're signals. They guide and channel resources. They tell producers what people actually want, in what quantity, and where effort is being misdirected. Hazlitt says no bureaucrat, no matter how brilliant, can solve that allocation problem arbitrarily. Free prices and real profits do something central planners can never do. They coordinate reality. Now bring that thought straight into your business. Your market's already talking. Your margin's already talking. Your conversion rates are already talking. And your churn rates are already talking. Your fulfillment drag, that's already talking too. Your repeated client objections, that's talking too. The question is, are you humble enough to listen? Many founders do the opposite. They impose price fixing on themselves, not government price fixing, personal price fixing. They charge the number that feels nice. It feels spiritual, feels safe, feels non-threatening. They keep offers alive that don't produce because they're emotionally attached to them. They refuse to simplify delivery because they're proud of the complexity that they created. They override demand signals because they want the world to want a different thing than what it actually wants. Then they wonder why shortages show up. Shortages of time, of cash, of focus, of clean demand. Shortage of energy to keep producing. Once again, Hazlitt's language here is merciless. If there's no profit in making an article, labor and capital are misdirected. In operator terms, if an offer constantly drains energy, requires heroic customization for every single client, creates resentment in yourself and your staff, and cannot support the business you're trying to build, then something about that offer is misdirected. That's just a fact. It doesn't automatically mean to kill it tomorrow, but it does mean stop romanticizing it today. A price system is an honesty system. More profit says, more here, please. Persistent loss says, something's really off over there. Clean demand says, this matters. Chronic confusion says, the market's paying you to get clearer and you need to get clearer. But if you keep suppressing the signals with discounts, subsidies, complexity, or personal sentiment, you end up managing shortages that your own dishonesty created. This is the deepest mirror in the entire book. Some of your overwhelm is not caused by how hard business is. Some of it's caused by how often you refuse to let reality correct you. You keep the weak offer alive. You avoid the hard pricing conversation. You protect the legacy service because it worked once, even if it doesn't today. You spend money to keep an inefficient system breathing. You pad the weak with low yield work because it feels safer than obeying that signal that challenges everything that you believe today. That's not prudence. That's price fixing in your own kingdom. So the old standard was preserve what's familiar. The new standard is obey honest signals faster. Wrong one. Let's go here. Obey honest signals faster. From now on, every offer, every channel, every system, and every recurring task gets judged by 4 questions. Does the demand validate it? Does margin support it? Does delivery remain stable under it? Does it free production or prolong shortage? If the answer to those questions keep coming back negative, you don't protect it because it has a history. You either reprice it, redesign it, sequence it differently, or shut it down. And before you say, yeah, but that sounds really cold and heartless, hear this part clearly. Hazlitt is not arguing for callousness. He even warns against ignoring groups who are immediately hurt by change. So no, this is not permission to become careless with someone else's life. It's permission to stop lying about economics. And a founder who lies about economics eventually harms people anyway, staff and clients included. Because the founder who ignores honest signals does not build compassion. He builds shortages, instability, and last-minute desperation. So let's put this all together. Hazlitt's one lesson is not just an economic lesson. It's an execution lesson. See the unseen bill. That's clarity. Maximize production, not visible toil. That's structure. Trace the diversion behind every single rescue. We call that accountability. Obey honest signals instead of subsidizing distortions. That's how the three pillars lock together in the real world. When one pillar is missing, your business starts speaking in fallacies. Without clarity, you stare at the broken window and call the repair a win. Without structure, you fetishize full calendars and mistake labor for output. And without accountability, you keep funding rescue plans whose hidden costs are not tracked by anybody. And if you miss all three, then every single week becomes an economy of half-truths. You optimize the immediate. You protect the visible. You neglect the long run. You flatter yourself into one group thinking. Because you're alone, you can keep doing all of that for far longer than is healthy for you or for your business. This is why information alone doesn't fix you. A founder can agree with every single principle that I've talked about in this video and that Hazlitt wrote about in his book, and still go right back to subsidizing disorder tomorrow morning. Knowledge is not the hard part. Honest application of it is. That's the final reveal. Hazlitt gives you the lens. He doesn't become your review loop. He teaches you to trace consequences. He can't sit across the room from you while you rationalize your next shiny distraction, the next underpriced offer, the next panic decision, or the next calendar full of glazier work. The problem is not awareness, it's implementation. So here's the logical next step. If any of this hits home, if you know you've been running a one-person economy on immediate effects, hidden taxes, and private rationalizations, start with the Entrepreneur's Clarity Quiz. Do that because you need diagnosis before you need more motion. You need to identify where your actual broken windows are, where your hidden costs are bleeding out, and where your production is being confused with busyness, and where your current model is being propped up by private subsidies you can't afford any longer. Now, this quiz is not a dopamine toy. It's actually the first clean ledger you may have ever seen. It helps expose what matters right now. And if what it reveals for you is deeper execution friction, if the real issue is not information, but implementation, then that's exactly why Wolfpack Mentors exists. Not as a motivation clubhouse, because, we're definitely not that. And not as a pile of other ideas, because we all have more ideas than we can possibly ever implement. It's a structure and accountability container for capable operators who are simply sick of trying to govern a growing business by visible effects alone. Inside the wolf pack, your decisions get traced. Inside the pack, your priorities get narrowed. Inside the wolf pack, your systems get sequenced. Inside the pack, your follow-through gets pressure because we hold you accountable. In Hazlitt's frame, you stop flattering the immediate and start obeying the entire ledger. That's what changes the game for you and for your business, and for the people that you want to impact. Because you can survive for a really long time staring at shattered glass and calling the glazier showing up a growth strategy. It is not. You can survive with a full calendar, the calendar that's full of toil and business, and a business short on production. And you can even survive while subsidizing weak offers, weak systems, weak decisions, and weak boundaries. But survival is such a low standard. I know you want to do more than that. You want to achieve something more than just the lowest possible standard. A serious operator learns to trace the consequence. A serious operator stops paying hidden taxes for avoidable chaos. A serious operator lets reality speak and then builds accordingly. So take the quiz, get the diagnosis, then do the work that honest numbers, honest structure, honest accountability have been demanding from you for far longer than you want to admit.